Take 832.
Hey everybody, it's your host Daisha. So I think that you'll find it hilarious to know that the episode that you're about to hear was recorded on Groundhog's Day, also my birthday by the way. It's my chat with Jennifer Kloetzel of the Cypress String Quartet. The last time that Jennifer was here on the show, she was talking to me about their supposed final recording. Well, in this episode, we talk about their final recording, which is kind of hilarious to me. Anyway, it's a great episode. I learned a lot about Brahms in this episode, and you will too. Also, I learned a lot about what the Cypress String Quartet did during their last recording, which was pretty sweet. Also, Jennifer is just really cool, and she reminds me of like the Kim Gordon of classical music. My 2 crossover Sonic Youth fans out there will appreciate that comment. Anyway, I hope that you enjoy the episode. Don't forget to subscribe to, rate us, and review us on iTunes. Even if you've done it before, you could do it again. Why not? Cypress did. Okay, enjoy the episode. There's a rumor going around that classical music can be hoity-toity. But here in the classical classroom, we beg to differ.
Beethoven 5.
Isaiah is shaking with excitement over here.
I mean, there's just so many great parts of the opera.
He asked me to play his favorite spot in the first movement of the Brahms. And he said, I started using those licks in my guitar solos.
How to be classical music rock stars, because there's not enough of that in this business.
Occasionally, I would plug in the mandolin to my distortion pedals.
I don't change my voice.
Talking to classical music voice.
I'm playing classical music now. I mean, it's the same 12 notes. That's what's so cool about it.
I'm Daisha Clay, a classical music newbie, and I'm trying to learn all I can about the music. Come learn with me and the classical music experts I invite into the Classical Classroom. Hello everyone and welcome to the Classical Classroom. I'm Daisha Clay, and here with me today from Sirius Sound in San Francisco, actually I'm welcoming back to the classroom, Jennifer Kloetzel. She's the cellist for the allegedly now really retired for real Cypress String Quartet. I said spring. I'm going to say that again. Cypress String Quartet. In January of this year, the quartet released their final recording, Brahms String Sextets, with the addition of Barry Schiffman and Zuill Bailey. We're going to talk about making that recording and the music itself. Jennifer, welcome back to the classroom.
Hi, Daisha. I'm glad to be back.
So of course I am happy to have you back, but the last time that you were on our show, it was to talk about your quote-unquote final recording of Beethoven's early string quartets, and here you are again. Is this like the recording version of multiple encores? Like, what's going on here?
You can't get rid of us that easily, can you? No, actually, I think when we spoke last, it would have been probably June of this last year, and this recording had already been made, but the way post-production works, because this recording was made in April, it takes a while for something to get released. So, you know, we did stop playing together as of July 1st, but of course then these projects kind of have their own timeline, and this one was released in January then.
Okay. This makes so much more sense, because I was going through my notes. I was like, wait a minute. Didn't we talk about this the last time?
Right, because we had our farewell concert just after just after we spoke with you. We played our final concert together.
And how did that go? How was their farewell
It was
concert?
great. You know, it was very, very special. We had people fly in from all over the country for our final performance, and we did this incredible booklet that was sort of a historical booklet about our time together and our legacy, if you will, our recordings, our outreach work, our commissioned works, all of that kind of stuff. And then actually at the reception afterwards, we had a friend who made basically a mini documentary about 12 or 15 minutes long about the 20 years of the Cypress, where they'd interviewed a lot of people who've known us over a period of time, talking about the work we've done. So it was a very moving experience, I will say.
Is that stuff, just by the way, in case people want to check it out, is that available on your website?
You can find it on our website, or you can look it up on YouTube, either way. So cypressquartet.com has all the, and there are a number of little films that were released about our work in schools, about our Beethoven recordings, and then about just overall our legacy, if you will.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, so before we go into talking about the music of Brahms, I just have to ask you what it was like to record at Skywalker Sound Studio. Did you have to go through Jedi training before recording there or after?
Well, we're not allowed to talk about that. No, almost all of our recordings have been made at Skywalker Sound, and it's a phenomenal place to work. One of the artists we've worked with in the past, our Schubert album, we recorded with the amazing cellist Gary Hoffman, and Gary said to me at one point, he goes, "That's not a recording studio, that's a lifestyle." Because there is something very magical. The room is amazing. Where you are in Marin County, it's just so beautiful when you walk out to get a breath of fresh air. It's phenomenal to be there. They treat you just beautifully. It's an amazing place to work. So I think that the big difference about our recording there this time was the fact that we had a live audience there and on the scoring stage with us, and also that we had two colleagues along with us too.
Yeah, we should talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
So you have recorded two string sextets by Brahms,
mm-hmm.
and of course that means you've got two extra people.
That's right.
Why did you choose to go that route for
mm-hmm.
your final recording?
Well, so we had been performing these string sextets, and they're the only two that Brahms wrote. We'd been performing them in concerts with Barry Schiffman and Zuill Bailey, these
mm-hmm.
incredible, phenomenal artists who we've known for, all of our musical lives together. We'd been performing it with them for the past few seasons and just felt like, we had come to a group understanding of the pieces and wanted to put our stamp on that. And why not then capture them in recorded sound? Yeah. So it made sense. These were old friends. Whenever you open up a group that's been together for 20 years to other people, you want to make sure that they're people that you know well, because it's a really intimate thing to do, to perform a lot with other people. And it changes if four of us are used to rehearsing together 4 hours a day, every day for 20 years. It's really different when you bring other, more and different energy in there. And they were incredible to work with.
Yeah, and I want to talk more about adding two people,
mm-hmm.
definitely. But tell me why you chose these pieces. Why Brahms? Why these pieces? What was it about these that
mm-hmm.
that said to you, okay, this is goodbye music?
Right. Well, these two sextets are legends in the chamber music world. They're phenomenal pieces. It's Brahms at his very, very best, I would say. He struggled with the quartet form. He did write 3 quartets. They come much later in his life. Actually, apparently he had written like 20 quartets and thrown them all away because he felt that shadow of Beethoven and Haydn and Mozart over his, looking over his shoulder. But he was very comfortable in this format. And I think part of the reason he loved this format was it's more symphonic. There's more options for texture, especially evenly balanced. In a sextet, there's 2 violins, as there are. That's a string quartet typically thing. 2 violas, though, and 2 cellos. So you have more options for melodic voices, like a cello and a viola can be a melodic voice without giving up the lower textures as well. Yeah. Or when you have 2 cellos on the bottom playing together at once, that's powerful. Yeah. And I think he was looking to push the envelope expressively, and he did that. And it's amazing that he chose a sextet format. The Opus 18 Sextet mm-hmm. was the first piece of chamber music for just strings that Brahms wrote and published.
Okay.
And that's amazing to me. And then he returns to it 4 years later, and then he's done with that form. Then he goes on, he writes piano quintets, piano quartets, string quartets, piano trio. He does all the other combinations of things, but after 1865, he doesn't write for string sextet anymore. But I feel, it's almost like he's like, okay, I conquered that. What's interesting too is from this period forward, other composers take up that mantle. So Dvorak wrote sextets, Tchaikovsky wrote a legendary, amazing sextet, Schoenberg, Korngold, you name it. People were writing sextets after the time of Brahms. So he was a trendsetter, if you will.
We should hear some of the music before I ask you any more questions about Brahms, because we were just listening to some of this before you and I started talking, and it's very cool sounding. You talked about how having the 2 cellos together mm-hmm. at the bottom there is really powerful sounding. It so is. Yeah. We should, where should we go in the music to hear that particular sound?
Let me see. In the second movement of the first sextet.
Okay.
And then Dante. And actually, it's, if you start at the beginning of that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's so kind of, it's got this like driving undertone to it.
And you could hear the three of us on the bottom there. So the melody's alternating between the first viola and the first violin at this point, which means that the bottom three voices and then occasionally the second violin are playing these big chords that are really kind of somber and dramatic. And then it's a variation movement, so it goes on and on. There's a point, a couple variations in, where the cellos are playing all these octaves, scales up and down and up and down. It's crazy. It's like, a zephyr is coming and blowing around you at the time. It's a phenomenal effect. It sweeps you away.
This is a very emo piece, definitely.
Yes.
It's and like, we should talk a little bit about, for some of our listeners who don't know a lot about Brahms, like that's kind of what he's known for, right? Like just sort of being very intimate. Like Beethoven's kind of known for being big and epic and bombastic, whereas Brahms is kind of known for the more intimate, emotional
There is an intimacy
sound
to his play. I mean, it's very deep. There's something that kind of is visceral in his music that kind of grabs you personally, I find. And these two sextets are very different in the way that he does that. They're only written, 4.5 years apart, but there's something very, very, even though it's the same set of instruments, I think the experience in his life that he's sort of responding to in music, because of course, composers aren't working in a vacuum. They're reacting to things going on around them, and he certainly was. And so he's almost drawing you into his world and what's happening with him.
Yeah. And wasn't he, you mentioned this just briefly, about how he felt the weight of those other composers, his predecessors, upon him. And wasn't it particularly Beethoven that they?
Yes, I think he definitely had that feeling of like, oh boy, look what Beethoven did. How am I ever going to come close to that? And he was tremendously hard on himself. Of course, Beethoven was as well. That's some of the greatest composers seem to really not understand their value and worth.
Right. And I don't think it helped the criticism that Brahms faced at the time, right? He was the one that when he came out with a symphony, somebody called it like Beethoven's 10th or something like that.
Well, and there was a period of time, so just before he wrote this first string sextet there, he wrote the amazing, D minor piano concerto, which he gave the first performance of, and it tanked for whatever reason. I don't know why. It did not go over well, and that was sort of the end of his performance career, and he was really depressed about that. But when he wrote the first sextet, he was just 27 years old at this time, and he got a great job, and he didn't have to work really hard, and he was allowed a lot of time to just compose and take the long walks in the woods that gave him his ideas. And so there is actually, except for that example we just played for you that sounded pretty serious, a lot of this piece is very kind of warm and contented sounding, I think, which relates to, I can imagine him walking in the woods with a notebook in his pocket, scribbling down ideas.
Wow, I'm not sure that could feel much different than what we just heard.
Yes, exactly.
Totally
right?
Different end of the spectrum.
Can you imagine this beautiful German forest where he was, he's living at this castle and he's taking his walks?
Totally.
Much more like Mozart or Schubert.
Nice. Okay, now let's move to the second sextet. and hear some of what you were talking about in that piece.
So I think the first movement of the second sextet sort of shows you. First of all, he's setting up an interesting effect in the either second violin or second viola or even first viola. Sometimes they have this little half step figure that kind of gives a kind of shimmer and tension to it, and then all of the themes are sort of reaching. They have these bigger leaps, and he actually over the course of this movement he puts in sort of code the name of the woman that he had been engaged to, that he broke off his engagement to. Her name was Agata, and he spells it out in music through there, and then he sort of turns it around and then uses a theme that's A-D-E, the notes A, D, and E, Ade, which means farewell.
Oh, wow.
It's almost like talk about cathartic. This movement is very cathartic.
That's pretty cool. Let's hear that.
Yeah, the magic of music. I mean, there's all these inner hidden secrets that I love about the music.
Yeah. It's like musical Easter eggs.
Yes.
That was a really cool transition. Like,
yeah.
There were a bunch of different things going on at the same time, and then everybody sort of came together.
Exactly. And there's that thing that I was talking about where you have two of the instruments that are the same instrument, but sort of playing in an octave together.
Yeah.
So that, the two cellos kind of come up this way. The violas do that too at times, and it's very powerful.
Yeah. So I'm curious. You mentioned you guys haven't recorded any other Brahms before this, and you've spent a lot of time with Beethoven.
That's
what
right.
was it like to go from playing all that Beethoven, all that big music, to playing Brahms? Like how did that feel?
Well, I think, we have composers, and the amount that you perform them, they become like friends to you, right? So when I'm playing Beethoven, I'm feeling a certain way. When I'm playing Brahms, all of us have a relationship from when we were children with Brahms, all 6 of us on that, scoring stage there. So there's an overall feeling to it that you come back to. Mm-hmm. And I don't feel, it's like when you're spending time with friends, how a friend reacts more to, so you might change your behavior slightly. So the way that we'll create sound is going to be different in the Brahms versus the Beethoven. And we didn't only spend our time in Beethoven. We were playing music, from Bach all the way up to things being written for us last year. So, being able to switch on a dime between composers, that's part of our job.
Yeah.
So, it was fun and also to add in the extra voices and what that created, that was really magical.
Yeah,
and being able
more
to capture it on the in recording. And I don't think we talked about this, but one of the cool things we did while we were recording it is we not only captured it digitally, so the CD that we have is the digital sound, but we had a reel-to-reel team in there, and they were recording it on analog. And we were listening back to the two, and they sound really different. It's kind of magical. And
why did you do that? That's so interesting.
Why or how? Sorry.
Why?
Well, we're always trying to do new things. We're always, and there was a group that we knew called the Tape Project, and they were very excited to try this. And you should have seen all the piles of tape, from our big old-fashioned reel-to-reel things. But the quality of sound is really different. It's very warm. It's very lush. And it sort of is that, retro cool thing to do. So that'll be released later this year. So
is that going to be put out on vinyl, or how are you going to release that?
We had talked about doing it on vinyl. I'm not sure yet what format it's going to be released in. So
that's super cool.
Leaving loose ends out there that are being tied up this year. So, yeah.
What? Okay, so why you guys you recorded as 6 instead of 4? Mm-hmm. Why? First of all, why did you pick Barry and Zuill? You talked a little bit about the fact that you guys were friends and you had performed together, but why did you choose? This is kind of a big decision that you're making. You're putting out this last recording.
That's right.
And you're like, all right, instead of just making it all about us, we're actually going to open this up. We're going to bring in these other 2 dudes. Mm-hmm. Why these dudes, and why open it up for your last performance?
Well, why open it up is because we really wanted to play this music. And so you need to find the other two people.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, so that's easy enough. The why these two, I mean, first of all, they are each phenomenal artists with, big careers of their own. And they were as excited about the project as we were. Then, especially when we first started playing together, Barry and Zuill have a relationship. They knew each other in from college years. We all knew them from different parts of our lives and had our own stories with them. And so just bringing the group together, something just clicked. And I think, the best, like when you open up any kind of ensemble or band to other people, if the match is right, right? You start playing together, you're like, yes. So it's both that they can fit into the group, but they also challenge the group. So they sort of drive us to do, something different. For me, it was really, so I'm one of the cellists. I play first cello on this recording. And I was, in fact, sitting between those two, which was a very unusual thing for me because I'm so used to, for 20 years, I've sat in the same, ensemble, the same format.
Right.
But I was now with a new person on each side of me, and the listening is different. And then also their energy is different. And what that all then, adds up to is something really greater than the 6 parts.
Yeah,
also amazing that our instruments in that recording session, over 1,600 years of instruments combined. So 3 of the instruments were more than 300 years old.
Wow.
So on the back of the CD booklet, you can see a picture of all those instruments.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Fun fact, producer Todd went to school with Zuill.
Oh, fun.
Yeah. So the one thing that we have not touched on yet, before you go, why did you decide to record live, and did that create enormous pressure for you, especially since you were being recorded on reel-to-reel to get it right?
I know, right?
How was that?
Yeah, right. Let's add pressure on top of pressure. I mean, being in a recording studio is always, there's a lot of pressure because you know that any take that you put down might be the one that they use, especially when you have other people in the room. It's not just about my part, right? It's about how everybody is playing, how the sound is captured. Inviting people in was part of this whole intimate thing because the people that we invited, we were playing with friends for friends. So the people that came were fans, friends, and supporters, and there was a group of 40 or 50, and they were in the room with us. So there was a different kind of energy, and performance energy is different than recording studio energy, and so we were combining that. I mean, we would play through the entire piece for them. There was no stopping. So we were capturing much larger scale movements at a time.
Cool.
That's what you hear on this recording. So we did 2 days in a row of playing the complete pieces through for an audience. So
wow.
Yeah.
And what is next for you, Jennifer? What are you going to go on to do after this, or what have you been doing?
Well, I'm doing some teaching. I'm the new cello professor at UC Santa Barbara.
Nice.
So I'm commuting from San Francisco down there a couple of days a week. But I also I did about 15 recitals in the fall. I've got a bunch of concertos coming up, and I have a whiteboard in my music room with about 12 projects that I'm slowly breaking down and figuring out how to do. So I think true to form, we all have a lot that we still want to do, and we're all working on laying groundwork for that. So stay tuned.
Okay, and if you guys decide to get back together and you should come back to the classroom so I can make fun of you again. But
yes, I love that. I love to be made fun of. Thank you.
You're so welcome. Jennifer Kloetzel, thank you so much for coming back to the classroom. It's been great to talk to you again.
Thanks, Stacia. Great to be here.
Take care. Bye.
Happy birthday.
Hey, thank you. All right, everybody, that does it for this episode of Classical Classroom. For more Classroom, go to houstonpublicmedia.org/classroom. Find our social media there and get up on it. Email me at dclay@houstonpublicmedia.org. Subscribe to, rate us, and review us on iTunes. Come on. You know you want to. Thanks today to audio producer Todd Marmot Holslander for making us sound good. Thanks to Mark DeClaudio for his piercing Puxatawny eyes. Thanks to Jennifer Kloetzel for being here today. Thanks to Sirius Sound for their help today. Thanks to me for saying words. But most of all, thanks to you for listening. We'll catch you next time.